You are listening to the Cattle Call Podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of Zentech Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The Cattle Call Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cattle Call Podcast with Jim and Rocco from Zentech Consultants. I am Jim, the good-looking one, and with me is my partner.
Hi, I'm better looking than you are.
Ooh, someone's feisty this morning. Who's been lying to you? Listen, everybody knows I'm the good-looking one.
No. This is Rocco, the better looking one.
Oh, okay. So I'm the good looking one, you're the better looking one today? All right, I give you that one. Listen, we're not really setting the bar all that high, are we?
No. Wait till the ladies get a hold of this one.
Ooh, yes. As you say, we both have faces made for radio. Yes, that's why we do a podcast and not a vlog. So what are we doing today? So today our topic is technical training, in person, virtual, live, or on demand. Which way to go? So that's what we're getting into today. So, like I said, we're going to talk about training, and training is a mainstay of the business that Rocco and I run here at Zentech Consultants. Right, so training accounts for probably 50% or more of what we do, right? And we do, from CAD to estimating and all the way through advanced BIM and construction management processes. We train on everything. We spend a ton of our workday helping people, kind of get better at what they do. And we've talked about training, right, a bunch of times on this program, right? We've talked about its importance and, why it's so vital to make sure your staff is well trained in the technologies and whatever processes you have in place. So I'm not really planning on dwelling too much on the whys and the wherefores of training for today's podcast. Instead, I figured I would just sum it up with the old adage that we've all heard, all right, 100 times, about the two managers discussing training for their staff, right? The first one asks, what happens if we train them and they leave us? And then the second replies, what happens if we don't train them and they decide to stay? All right, and that kind of sums it up. Training is vital at all levels, and research shows that employees who receive regular training are far less likely to leave your company looking for greener pastures and with your competitor. So with that said, right, there are a whole bunch of different options out there today for training your staff, and we wanted to look into a few of them and discuss the pros and cons of each. And now here's where we're going to be a little different today, right? I know I usually do the bulk of the talking on this show. But since today's topic is focused on more of the human interaction side than the tech, I'm going to give Rocco a chance to talk for a change. Since that's Rocco's area of expertise. He usually keeps me away from real people. He only lets me talk with computers. He says I'm rude and obnoxious. I think he's just jealous because I'm the better looking one.
I do not say that. I do not say either of those things.
I have proof. He said both of those. And I'll get his wife to back me up. Trust me. All right. So Rocco, what is the view on training your existing staff out there today? I mean, I know a decade or so back, it wasn't really a high priority, right? A lot of folks kind of had the idea that people should learn stuff on their own time and on their own dime, so to speak, right? I mean, has that changed in the architecture, engineering, construction, design world?
Yeah, I think it has changed. I always say it depends on the size of the firm. Obviously, larger firms have more budgets that are set aside for training, and smaller firms kind of struggle more with with finding the money because they're working on tighter margins. But the technology is constantly changing, particularly if you're working with a cloud-based technology. There are always updates, and you're not talking once a year. I mean, sometimes you're talking about a couple times a year where they're constantly making updates. So I think that the mentality has changed, that you need to stay current. And one healthy and helpful way to do it is to get consistent training. And to support your point about people being happier when they get training, I do think that it's true. It's not just about getting a raise and about salary. It's about satisfaction. And if you're under a lot of pressure to learn some of this software, while you're trying to get a project done, it's frustrating because there are constant changes and it's not easy to stay on top of things. And so getting training is only going to add a level of satisfaction to your job and help you do your job better.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think everybody likes to know that, what they do is worthwhile, that it's worth a little bit of investment on the part of the company. And beyond just money, I mean, listen, everybody wants more money, but I really do believe that people respond better to knowing that you feel your employees are important enough and that their job is important enough that you want to invest in helping them be better at it. I think that goes a long way. I really do. So, all right. So, I know, obviously we all know, that we're dealing with the pandemic craziness right now, right? So in-person training is nearly impossible at the moment. But leading up to it, right? And leading, looking forward to when we get back to normal after the pandemic, I wanted to look at the good and the bad that goes along with in-person traditional training. So Rocco, right? I know we still have, a lot of people who prefer, the in-person classroom type training. What do those clients really see as the benefit here, right? And what are your thoughts on it? Do you agree with the in-person training concept, or do you think that remote learning is a better option overall?
Well, I think it depends on how you do it. I mean, overall, we come, Jim and I have been in the Autodesk channel. We were in the Autodesk channel for many years, and Jim was actually worked for a large civil firm here on the East Coast for quite a number of years, and so we're used to doing that in-person training. Being at the desk with an instructor in front of you for 8 hours a day, and drilling that content into you. And does it work? Yeah, to an extent it does work, but the approach that we take here at Zentek is that we do our training. Most of our training, all of our training, is done online, and we break our training down into 2-hour sessions, once or twice a week. And the idea is that you're delivering content in smaller bites versus doing that whole data dump of 8 hours. Mm. And a lot of people react better to that because they're able to digest it. They're able to go back and start to apply what they learned and come back with questions from session to sessions versus doing that 8-hour data dump where it's now, okay, you're in class for 2, 3, 4, 5, 8-hour days at a time. And now you're going back to work and, okay, you got to catch up because you were out last week for 3, 4, 5 days with training. So by the time you get back into the swing of things and start to apply what you learned, it takes time. And it just, I think the deployment of that knowledge is slowed because of the fact that you're doing such a large data dump all at once. And I don't think that trying to do 8 hours of training live online works either. I think that's almost just as bad as having a live instructor in front of you. So that's why so many folks come to us and they like our approach of how we structure training.
Right. So I guess what I was, you kind of went negative there on me, which was going to be my next question. I think what do you understand why? Because I'll be honest, I don't. I've always been opposed to kind of the in-person training thing. What are the reasons? Are there any reasons behind doing the in-person training, or is it just kind of it's what people know and they're comfortable with?
I think it's what how do I say this politically correct? I think it's more the old school way of thinking. I don't think that there are huge benefits to it unless you're doing something that's really hands-on. I mean, if you're in a medical field and you need to do hands-on work, for example, or you know what I mean, where you need to be there physically, I think it's a different story. But in the case of technology, which is what we're focused on talking about here, I don't think that there's a huge benefit in doing the online training, the in-person training.
Okay. All right. Well, you kind of almost answered a good bit of my next question here, which was, again, right, setting aside the current pandemic issues, I did want to talk about the drawbacks of the in-person learning. All right, and you kind of got some of those, but let's focus a little bit more on it in terms of the costs and the logistics of in-person training, right? I mean, like I said, I've been pushing back against this type of training with our clients for years. And Rocco's a bit more politically correct and flexible on it. He's nicer to people about it than I am. But I did want to hit those negatives here. So, Rocco, what are those, in terms of, like I said, costs and logistics? What are the drawbacks for the Insight or the in-person on-site training, right? Where do you see the biggest issues that it brings up for those clients who just insist on it?
The biggest issue is time and cost, right? I mean, the time that's involved in literally isolating your people for days, pulling them away from production, pulling them away from issues that come up every day. That's one of the big points. The other point is cost. If not only the cost because now your people are pulled away for that much time, but the cost to bring in a live instructor in. You got to fly them in from wherever they're coming in from. You got to pay for their meals. You got to pay for their hotel stay. You got to pay for their time, and so that all adds up.
Yeah. And I remember we actually had a conversation with one client because Rocco had pointed out to him, the issue of the 8 hours, of taking people off. He's like, well, we can do it in person, and you guys can come in and train just for 2 hours a day for 2 weeks. And I'm like, sure. And you can pay me to travel out there for the full 2 weeks and pay all my meals and room and board. And he went, oh yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That the logistics of it add up very, very quickly when you're doing the in person. So, okay, and Rocco, you actually kind of alluded to this earlier, so I don't feel as bad now with my next question, right? I said I'm going to get a little politically incorrect myself, but it is definitely something that I have noticed, and I wanted to see if I'm just crazy, but I don't think so, or, it seems like, Rocco, you've noticed it too. Do you think that there's an age divide on this issue of on-site training? I have just found that people who are interested in it, who demand, we have to have you on site, they're usually older folks. Let's say 40 years or better. Do you see that in your conversations, or am I just crazy?
Yeah, I do hear about it. I think it's a little bit, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's the way that it's been, right? But again, between the general transformation to digital that we've gone through pre-COVID, that things were already moving very quickly into the digital age of doing a lot more online. But now everybody's being thrown into it. So I think more and more folks are being convinced now that they see how you can actually get work done remotely and getting training done remotely. I think that mindset is changing a lot, but I do think that a lot of it is the older school mentality, and it's not that there's something wrong with it. It just, there is another way. There is a better way. So why not embrace that way? Why not change your mindset and work in a different manner?
Right. Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. I mean, as humans, I think we all kind of default to our comfort zones, right? What have we done before, And like I said, for those people our age, it's more, we're used to that in-person training setup, so we don't want to change. Something new means learning new things and other potential problems that might come up that we might be held accountable for, and none of us want that in our daily work lives. So, all right. So I think that's good. So let's take a break here to listen to today's sponsor. And when we come back in the second half, we're going to talk about the virtual training options that are available to people out there. Alrighty, folks, we'll be back in just a minute with more of the Cattle Call Podcast. Alright, everybody. Today's episode of the Cattle Call Podcast is brought to you by Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. We're bringing ourselves to you. Aren't we nice? So we wanted to talk to you guys today about some of the things that we offer at Zentech Consultants. In particular, we wanted to talk to you today about our offerings around developing and upgrading your CAD standards. We are here to help you guys with all of your CAD standard needs, from ongoing drafting and design support to block and library development, full CAD standards development, right? CAD version upgrades, really whatever it is that you guys need when it comes to developing, implementing, and tweaking your current CAD standards. Or like I said, if you don't have any yet, we can help you build them from scratch. So Rocco, why don't you tell all the good folks how they can reach out to us and start that conversation?
Yeah, there's a lot of information, people, on our website, zentechconsultants.net. That's ZENTEK consultants.net. Or you can give us a call, 866-824-4459, or even drop us an email, sales@zentechconsultants.net.
Ooh, nice. CAD standards from Zentech Consultants. You're listening to the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Cattle Call Podcast with Jim and Rocco. We're discussing modern technology training methods. And in this half of the podcast, I wanted to talk about the virtual options that are available, right? And which way most of our clients go, and which way you should be looking based upon your company's specific needs. Digitally delivered training, which is really, it's the bulk of what we do here at Zentech, by the way. So this is our area, right? And that virtual training can be delivered in two ways, right? Either live virtual or on-demand recorded. And both have their pros and cons. And I think that either method works. It's really about how you choose to implement each of them that's going to determine the success level for your particular training. Some companies and systems really require, active interaction with a human instructor. While others can work quite well with a pre-recorded sessions that's covering common tech processes. And I think that, the key, just like in most things, right, it's about understanding your company's needs and understanding your staff and what their needs are and how they respond so that you can choose the right option for your firm. So I want to start here with instructor-led, what we call virtual live training. And just like in the first half, I'm going to let Rocco take the lead here, and I'm just going to ask a bunch of questions. So Rocco, what do you see as the main benefits to virtual live classes, right? Where do they have the edge over both, in-person and on-demand sessions?
Yeah, well, the bulk of our customers prefer the live option because it gives the students the opportunity to ask questions real time, right? Here at Zentech, if we offer a private class, you're one-on-one with an instructor, so your group could literally be one-on-one through an open chat or an open phone line. And ask questions real time, and we're able to adapt the training and the content of the training more towards their workflows, towards what their challenges are. So that's one of the real benefits of the live online sessions.
Okay, all right, which is fair. So let's look at the flip side of that coin then, right? Because there's always a negative to go with every positive. So where have we run into issues with virtual live training, right? What are the negative feedbacks that we've seen from people on some of the classes that we've run in the past?
Yeah, I mean, it's like everything else in the world, right? And not everything is made to fit everybody, and that's why we offer options, and that's why there's other options out there as well. But I guess some of the downfalls maybe of the live classes is where you have situations where people have fluid schedules where they can't really dedicate the time, to a live class. So now they might be paying for a live class, but then they're not able to show up. And we do offer the recording of each live class session for 48 hours, and that helps folks. But if you're looking for that live session, you're not able to dedicate the time to it, then it's going to be a waste of time and money for you. So you have to factor that, that point into the mix.
Right. Yeah, I think another area where I've seen it on the tech side is that, when you're doing a live class, things happen, right? Internet goes out, audio problems come up, and I have seen that become an issue. I mean, usually, like I said, we try to either postpone the class or, like I said, worst case, right, get a recording of another session to share with people.
But that's rare that
oh
happens.
yeah,
Right?
again, yeah, it doesn't happen very frequently. Well, I can think in the last 5 years, it's happened maybe twice. But it does happen, right? And it does throw. It's the potential is there to throw a monkey wrench into that need for the live instructor training. Things can get delayed, and there can be connection issues. And I tell you what does happen more is on the other side, right? Not necessarily for us because we're kind of geared out for that, but there have been a number of times where the clients have insufficient connection. They have really really low end, internet connections, and they haven't loaded the apps, or they got 15-year-old computers they're working on, and they can't connect in any reasonable fashion. So that is kind of the potential that you can run into there. Like I said, it does not happen often, but it's there. Right? Like I said, I just wanted to point out that is one of the potential negatives.
But those situations can happen in a live. Some of those situations can happen in a live scenario as well.
Oh Lord, yes.
You could have you could be planning to fly an instructor in, and now there's a big snowstorm or flight delays,
Absolutely.
Or the instructor could get sick, or the instructor's on site, and now you have three PCs that are going down. So there's
Yep. Yeah, that goes with anywhere. Yeah, absolutely. It's a valid point. Okay. All right. So the last piece of this training puzzle that we're working through today is the on-demand or the recorded training option. And this is where students can access a recorded session at kind of the time and the place of their choosing, right? Whenever it works for them. And that always sounds like a perfect scenario, right? And we do have a lot of folks who jump at that idea, but it's not always as perfect as it seems, right? So let's start there. So Rocco, what are the big drawbacks you run up against when you're dealing with on-demand training, right? What areas do people come back to us with that don't always work out the way they hoped when they're using recorded training sessions?
I really don't. I can't think of many. I think a lot of people really they like the option. They're able to view it at their own pace within a given time period that's set, right? Our 8-hour classes are available for five full days, so they're able to review the content as often as they wish during that time period. I really don't get many complaints, because up front this is on demand. It's not live. Mm-hmm. So if there's any, not a complaint, but if there's any feedback, well, maybe I would benefit more from doing it online because I can ask questions real time while I'm going through it.
Yeah.
So I can't think of many complaints about.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only two that really come to mind for me are exactly like you said. Number one, you don't have anybody you can ask if you run into a problem or you have a question. Right? You're watching something that was recorded, 2-3 weeks ago. You don't have a live instructor. And I think the other thing, and it's really more of a business-focused concern, is I have seen a number of cases where people will purchase the recording, right? And again, we're not giving you the recording forever. You don't own it. You don't get to keep it for 10 years. They kind of lease it, right, for a week or so. And there seems to be almost this thing with people that if it's recorded, they don't take the time to view it. It's like, oh yeah, I got this guy the recording for a week, and then I was too busy. I never watched it. And that's really, I guess, the other big area where I see, the warning there is just, be careful and make sure that your people understand when you're dealing with recorded training. Yep, it's recorded. Yep, you can watch it at night or in the morning or, in the bathtub if that's what you want to do. That's fine. But,
that's a scary thought.
Jim. It is a scary thought, but hey, why not? Listen, ain't nothing wrong with a little bubble bath and some Chardonnay and got the laptop, put up there and listen to Jim train you on Revit. That's, why not? We can do anything. Welcome to the modern world. But, yeah, I mean, you just got to make your people aware that, hey, you're still paying for that. The company's investing that time, and you do need them to set it aside and take it as seriously as they do an in-person class. So that's about the only other real negative I've run into, with the on-demand training.
Yeah, but you know what you're paying for, right? I mean, you could find so many examples outside of the training world. You go lease a car. So you lease a car for 3 years, but you don't use the car in those 3 years. Well, that's not GM's fault or Honda's fault.
No, absolutely.
So.
Yeah, but again, same thing, right? But if the company is leasing the car for you and you never even take it out of the parking lot, the company's not going to lease you a car next year.
Right.
You know, and that's kind of the point I think that I'm making. You got to kind of keep track of, you know, are people actively using, you know, the recordings that you've purchased for them.
Right.
Okay. So, right, again, that I guess really leaves only one topic, right, left to touch base on here, and it is the positive side to the on-demand recording, right? You know, why can that be a huge benefit in some instances? So, Rocco, who really benefits the most from the on-demand session, right? Which clients and processes seem to work well with this type of training, and what are the real positive features of the on-demand rep?
I think the folks that benefit the most are those that, one, they may be slower learners, and so they want that flexibility to be able to review the content 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times if they want. So those folks benefit. The other ones are those who just don't, they have the need to learn, but they don't have the time. So, you know, you can make the time, you know, during evenings or on weekends, for example, or early mornings, you know.
Or in your bubble bath.
Or in your bubble bath, yeah. So that's where, you know, that's where the on-demand can be a huge benefit. And the other is, you know, where you know exactly what you're going to get, right? A more structured content. You know, if you're looking for custom training, you know, where somebody's going to work with you one-on-one, then the on-demand option is not for you, you know. And we can work with you one-on-one if you need it, mm-hmm. but the on-demand recorded route is probably not the best route for you.
Yeah, it's much more structured. So, all right, fair points. All right, so I guess, you know, to sum it up here today, then, you know, there are good and bad things about any training method. Doesn't matter what they are; they all have pros and cons. And the important thing, like I said at the beginning, is you know, when you're deciding on a training program for your staff, it's important that you understand your personnel and your overall goals. You know, it's one thing to say, hey, you know, we need to train, right? But it's another thing entirely to implement a detailed training program that works within your schedule and addresses the specific needs of your people and how they work on the daily. You know, there is no right or wrong here. You know, and honestly, for a lot of people, I think a hybrid answer is probably going to be the way to go, right? You're going to get a little bit of this and a little bit of that, some recording, some live. Avoid the in-person. At this point, it's a waste of your time and money. You know, but in my experience, right, you know, the virtual live is really, and this is from the tech side, right? The virtual live, you know, with the instructor-led training is really best for people who are kind of low to mid-level learners in any technology, you know, so that they get the chance to ask questions and get a really experienced instructor's input on what they're facing. You know, and recorded training seems to work best, in my mind anyway, for more advanced people. You know, the ones who are already comfortable with the technology and are really just looking to learn like a specific tool or a specific process. Yeah, I think that those people, they have less need for interaction with an instructor since, you know, they already understand the basics of that system. Okay, and I will also say, you know, before we bounce out of here, you know, that like I said before, I think that the in-person training concept is a completely dead one. It's expensive, it's time-consuming, and it is just like Rocco said earlier. It's just too much info dump at one time to make it worthwhile. And listen, folks, if your company still insists on it and your boss says they want the in-person people, have them call me, and I will explain to him why the virtual option is always the better answer. Believe me, I do it all the time. Rocco's always put me on the line with people to talk them out of in-person training. All right. Anything else you want to throw in here, Rocco?
No, I mean, you know, if you insist we want it in person and we'll pay, then Jim will go to Hawaii any day.
I'm always down for Hawaii. So that's the case. I'm your man. If you want Alaska, Rocco's your guy. All righty, folks. With that, we're going to get out of here, and we will catch you next time on the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody. Today's Cattle Call was brought to you courtesy of Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. Zentech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. Zentech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to Zentech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net, or you can even call us 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from you all.